Hey guys, so we're gonna take a look at our number talk today. We're gonna take a look at fractions as they relate to decimals again, which we talked about before we left for school. We got our base 10 blocks, and we talked about if the flat was a one would represented one whole number, then the stick represented 1/10, and then the micro or the cube represented 1/100th of the whole. So I wrote on here, let's see if I can draw on it. Okay, so on your slideshow, I wrote a place value chart like we've seen it. So maybe if we were looking at this first, your goal today is going to be to write the decimal form of the fraction on the key so that you can unlock the fraction. So if I looked at this 4/10 first, and I'm thinking about how I say that when I read it as a fraction and I read it as 4/10. And if I'm looking up here at these, I have thousands, hundreds, tens, ones. Here's my decimal, which is going to stay, and 4/10. And I look at this one and I read it, and I read that it says tenths. So I know that I'm going to put my 4/10 here. I might put a 0 here because I don't need anything there. And then 4/10 goes in there. I don't have any hundredths on this one. You can put a 0 here in the hundredths part, but if we were actually writing that as a number, you would not see a 0 there. It would just be blank. So I'm going to leave it blank for now. If once you have figured out where the 4/10 would go on the place value chart, you're going to need to write 4/10 as a decimal in this key. In order to do that, you're going to come up here to this text box. You can see where my mouse is hovering over the box with the T in it. And you're going to draw, you just need a little text box here. And my number written as a decimal is 0 and 4/10. So I'm just going to leave it like that, just like that. I'm going to make it a little bit bolder so you can see. And then you can leave your decimal in there. Same thing goes for the hundredths. If I came back through and I erased some of my drawings here. And then really these would be 0, right? Because we just talked about how we would read this fraction as 3/100ths. So we would put our decimal here. We don't have any tenths, so I'm going to put a 0, but we do have 3/100ths. So I'm going to put a 3 in my hundredth spot. So then I'm going to add, my text box here. And you can't really see because my face is there. So my answer would be 0 and 3/100ths. So you can kind of see it. And you're just going to put it there. Now, the reason I told you that you're going to do something like that is because on this slide, you're going to write in your own decimals on each of these keys. You're unlocking the fraction with the form of a decimal. If you need to use this chart back here on slide number 2, feel free to use this place value chart on slide number 2. It is to your advantage. And if you want to do that, you can add a text box in it, or I believe you could, maybe I could. You can add a text box into each of these because you're not going to be able to draw. You're not going to be able to draw on it like I did. So if you need to, or you could use a piece of notebook paper to write it out too. So good luck unlocking the fractions.